Chess friends, I hope you are doing well. Today, I have the Torch chess engine, which is the best chess engine in the world, and I played against it with the black pieces. This game is completely marvelous and insane because I will illustrate the chess opening strategy and the middle game tactics with you. So, let's get started without wasting any time. Torch started the game with e4, we have e5, knight f3 followed by knight to c6, bishop to c4 follows in the game to attack the pawn. Where knight to g5 can also arrive, the bishop moves out to c5, the copycat variation, and we have d3, emphasizing the attack through the knight and bishop, we have d6, and Torch is very eager to attack my pawn on the f7 square. He thought I would fall into the trap like an intermediate player against a master chess player. Of course, playing knight to h6 is the best move, but here lies a trap that starts with f5, you can literally play that move, offering the knight to f7. Your opponent might become very pleased and spill his coffee upon seeing that move, and his energy level will rise because he is attacking two pieces, but don't worry, you are a subscriber of Stockfish, play queen to h4, attacking the pawn with two pieces. White might castle, then after f4, closing the door to the bishop, white will capture the rook on the h8 square. Then you can confidently play bishop to g4, your queen is under attack, and the f2 pawn is pinned, therefore, the queen has to retreat, and knight to d4 will arrive with the idea of threatening knight to f3, forking the king and queen. After the exchanges occur, queen to h3 followed by queen to g2 will lead to checkmate, therefore, many players might consider knight to d2 to protect that square, but don't worry, you have knight takes c2, where the queen will be trapped, like solving a mathematical question. Competing against the best student in the classroom, a couple of moves later, knight d2 will no longer be possible. So, if your opponent plays knight f7, he will also be lost because you have bishop to f3 attacking the pawn, and of course, your opponent cannot capture the bishop, because of knight takes f3. If they play knight d2 to attack your bishop, you can play queen to g4, putting pressure on the pawn cannot move because there will be checkmate in two moves. Alright, the position is completely yours, your opponent has no options left, and of course, the bishop cannot be captured because knight takes f3 will fork the pieces and end your opponent's plans, therefore, after g3 followed by queen to h3, checkmate is unstoppable, even if your opponent dares to capture the bishop. Knight takes f3 followed by queen takes h2 will lead to checkmate, the king will fall into defeat. So, going back to the position, at this point, we discovered that playing f5 is a very good choice to consider, but I didn't choose that move. I wanted to defeat Torch with a different play. I considered knight h6, as you can see. Torch played c3 to prevent any sort of knight entry with a no entry barrier. After castling, we have h3 followed by knight a5. You can see that Torch is trying to protect his bishop, because his bishop is like a sniper. All he needs is to protect his bishop to further his attacks. At this point, I wanted to push my pawns forward. When white castles, it becomes evident that I played a crucial move here. Try to think like a grandmaster or Stockfish to guess what I played in this position. Remember, I didn't play any sacrifices, it's a positional understanding move. The move is king to h8, the point is clear, I want to play f5, opening up my bishop's diagonal, where my knight and rook will be activated. I also have a sniper bishop. The bishop is pointing an AWM gun at the pawn, and the queen can also go to h4 if needed, even queen e8 is possible, followed by queen to g6 to access the file. Additionally, there is bishop takes h3, which arises in a chase variation. Noticing all these lines, Torch, being a strong player, played queen to h5, he doesn't want to lose the game, because he is playing with the white pieces. If he loses with the white pieces, he will lose all his reputation. At this point, the knight is under attack by the bishop. Playing knight to f7 might seem desirable to many players, but the knight will be ineffective. Therefore, I move my knight back to the g8 square. Remember, when I move my knight back, it is called a maneuver, and when you move your knight back, it may turn into a blunder. I can play knight e7 and break the center. Alright, that's my plan. Here, instead of making developing moves, Torch dared to play d4 to attack my pawn. After the bishop moves back to the c2 square, it becomes evident that he is using all his resources to attack my h7 pawn through the bishop. He's using all his energy, like students who spend too much energy on phones and social media. If they used half that energy on studying, they would achieve brilliant results. But human tendencies are fragile, people do what they like, not what is best for them. A couple of moves later, we have g5 to attack the queen. My plan is clear, I want to bring my queen up and move my rook, like lifting it in a yoga class to strengthen it, by playing h5, then h4, with the bishop pointing and knight h6 also possible. The queen retreats. It becomes evident that knight h6 followed by g4 can open the bishop's diagonal. Queen g6 is also possible, and I can lift my rook to g7, joining the other rook through the file to create a power source. The dark squared bishop is also there, fighting like Alexander the Great. We have queen to h5, where I can push forward my pawn, and knight g6 can arrive to support the attack. After a couple of moves, you can see that we are just maneuvering our pieces, and finally my knight goes to the f4 square. Like Usain Bolt, who is the champion in racing of course, you cannot capture the knight, because after the exchanges, the g file will be open, where my bishop is targeting your pawn. After a few more moves you can see that we are just repeating our moves, and I played rook to e8 on the board because I don't want the game to end in a draw. You might ask, why did I click this video if the game is a draw? No my buddy, I have something special for you. If you dare to think about playing d5 to attack the knight and the bishop simultaneously, I can play a very marvelous, unnoticeable move. Bishop takes e3, and after you capture my knight, I will simply capture the pawn with a check, forcing the king to move. After bishop to f4 check, you have to play g3, then I will capture it, and as the king moves, queen takes h3 will lead to a checkmate. What a spectacular checkmate it will be, because the bishop is sniping from d7 with his AWM gun. But don't worry, let me provide you a motivational quote in sudden with you. Your self-worth and your happiness are non-negotiable. Surround yourself with people who uplift you, inspire you, and support you on your journey. So, going back to the position, we discover that playing d5 is a very bad choice because the light square and the queen are jointly attacking the pawn. Therefore, as the queen moves, and after a few more moves, you can see that Torch played d5 brilliantly to attack the knight, and the bishop simultaneously. He put pressure on the two pieces like a champ, and he captured the bishop. But don't worry, I have the basics to trap the bishop on this square. It's my technique. If you capture my piece, I will trap your piece or make positional advantages. A few moves later, you can see that I immediately played g4, because your queen is far away. My bishop, along with the knight, my rook, and the queen on h7 are putting more pressure on your position. Almost my four pieces, worth about 21 points, are attacking your king side. After you captured and I recaptured, we have rook to g7, indirectly putting pressure on the bishop. My sole priority is to consider h3 to open up the line somehow. We have a5 and h3 followed by g3, now I played h2, and at this point, you cannot move your rook to any squares. Let me show you why. If you dare to move the rook here, the problem for you is that the light squares will become very weak. Therefore, don't attack too quickly. First, you need to play b5 to deflect at the queen from this line. The queen has to retreat to the queen side, and now your attacks will become very strong. Queen to h3 will arrive with the idea of checkmating you on the g2 square. As the knight moves to protect that square, you have to put your knight on the g6 square, but be careful, you need to put the passive knight to attack the knight. Now, checkmating on f3 doesn't matter because after knight e2, checkmate will come from another direction. Bishop to f2 might come to protect that pawn, but don't worry, the f3 pawn becomes very weak. Therefore, I will capture your knight on the h4 square. Threatening checkmate. After you capture, I will capture the f3 pawn, leading to checkmate. You will then face the vulnerabilities and lose the money you invested in chess trying to defeat me. So, going back to the reason, we discovered that any rook move is not possible. Therefore, after rook to g2 and all the exchanges, we have knight to g6 with the idea of playing knight to f4 to open up the g5 for the rook, the king moves back, and we have knight to f4, still, you cannot capture the knight. Let me show you the variation. I will consider queen to h5 with the idea of attacking your vulnerable knight on the f3 square. The knight will ask, why are you always attacking me? Why don't you attack other pieces? Bishop to d1 doesn't matter because I can play bishop to h3 with the idea of attacking you another way. As the knight moves back, queen to g6 will threaten checkmate in different ways. Even knight to f3 doesn't matter, because after a few moves, it will lead to checkmate. The game will again be over, just like your hair will decrease with age. So, going back to the position, we discover that capturing the knight is not possible. Therefore, as the bishop moves back to the d1 square, we have b5 followed by c5. Now I am threatening knight to d3 to attack the pawn with a check, which could lead to checkmate in a few moves. Therefore, after the exchanges and king moves, we have some pieces dancing on the board, and queen takes e4, leading to a check. Of course, you can capture the queen, but after knight takes f2, I will regain your queen. Therefore, he just captured the pawn, and we had queen exchanges. After a few more moves and further exchanges, you can see that we were just maneuvering our pieces. In the end, we have two rooks for your vulnerable knight and rook. This position is completely winning for me. All you have to do is win all the pawns that white has. In the end, you can exchange your rook for the knight if you have more pawns than white. This position is completely winnable for me. I will just push my pawns, eventually promoting to a rook, and in the end, even if you have a queen, it will be worthless. I hope you enjoyed the game very much. If so, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. See you later, bye bye, take care and see you soon.